Howdy folks, welcome back. We're finishing up on the Disney romance series here that I've been doing throughout the whole month of February. And this one I saved for last for a specific reason. Because something just came out this month, or a few months ago actually, that I just bought, and I wanted to read it before I talked about this film and give you my thoughts on this particular thing. And how is it all tied in? Well, you'll find out. The last film we're going to talk about came out in 1989, and it essentially was one of the films that kicked off what was known as the Disney Renaissance. To me, technically, it all happened when Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out in 1988, and they followed it up with Oliver and Company, and then this film. Now, but this was the film that officially kicked off the Disney Renaissance, okay? So, the reason why I say it to me, it kind of starts a little bit earlier, because around that same time, you know, they had success with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Oliver and Company came out in 1988 as well. However, that was part of what they call the Bronze Age. That was the last of the Bronze Age. And fortunately, Oliver and Company was a successful film that they were able to make this film. And they had made a pledge back in the 1988-87 fiscal year for Disney that they were going to produce an animated film once a year. Now keep that in mind, because that is extremely difficult to pull off and execute, because animated films take approximately 3 to 4 years in production. That's not talking about pre-production. That is just production, what it takes to put the images to screen. Okay? So in 1989, they officially kicked off what was known as the Disney Renaissance. And this came out in November, just in time for the Christmas season, or the holiday season. And that would be The Little Mermaid. Yeah, came out in 1989 and was a huge success theatrically. Now, to say it was a film that Disney was happy about, yes, but to say it was a grand slam hit, no, because everybody still had in this mind, okay, it's Walt Disney, and so it's animation, so it's really not going to be appealing to me. Well, this was the film that showed that they can actually tell a good story. And everybody knows this story about little Ariel, who is the daughter of King Triton, and she has dreams of meeting humans and she has a crush on this prince, this human prince. And the only way that she feels that she can do that is if she becomes human. So she strikes a bargain with Ursula the Sea Witch, and Ursula gives her this. Puts a spell on her that would say, okay, I'll give you a potion that will last for 3 days, and if you don't have the prince kiss you before the sunset on the last day, you will get this thing back. You will be a human forever. But Ursula has other plans. Of course, she wants to take over Triton's kingdom, and the only way that she sees fit is to go through Ariel and in order to strike this bargain. And of course, Ursula is out to prevent Ariel from kissing the prince, because if that happens, the spell is broken and she doesn't get what she wants. And not only that, it cost Ariel her voice, which was something that she was truly blessed with as a natural gift. She has this beautiful, beautiful singing voice. And so, in order to pursue her dreams, she gives that up. And the moral of the story is that you shouldn't give that stuff up. If you have been blessed with something, let's say that God has blessed you with something, you don't want to give it up. You want to use it. And that's kind of the moral of the story. If you've been blessed with a gift like that, you need to use it. And but yeah, there are dreams, but she was willing to sacrifice that to pursue a greater dream, which was, which is the love of her life. Okay, but of course we all know the end of the story, that it all ends up well for Ariel, and that she gets to live with Prince Eric and live happily ever after as a human, and she has her voice, and she's able to sing, and she's able to do all these things, and live happily ever after. Okay, so we all know that story, and of course, this is a movie that almost didn't get made. Of course, at the time, like the story is told, it took Disney. Disney was going through a tough period at that time in the 80s, 70s and 80s, and Disney had a tough time, making hit movies. They were not only were they looking for, they understand that it was a children's medium, but they wanted something that everybody could enjoy and not just be boring, and that was kind of the old guard back in the 70s, is that we may bore you, but we will never shock you. And that kind of sent a terrible message throughout the storytellers. And where that all came apart was when they made The Black Cauldron. And when The Black Cauldron came out and was a complete miserable, critical, and financial flop, Disney was at a point where, okay, do we continue making animated movies, or do we shut it down? And so, but there was this thing that came out at the same time called the VHS, the VCR, the videotape. And they realized that, hey, their movies were selling very, very well on videotape. And so that got them to thinking, okay, what can we create that's brand new that would look good on a video box? And that's how it all started. And that they pitched all these different ideas. And The Little Mermaid was rejected at first, because Disney at the time had made this hit movie, this hit comedy, romantic comedy, with Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah called Splash, in which Daryl Hannah played this mermaid that falls in love with Tom Hanks, who's this helpless romantic, and it kind of seemed too familiar with Splash. And also, they were developing Splash 2, because Splash was such a big hit. Disney would say, okay, we want to make the sequel now. Well, that ended up changing once they saw Little Mermaid and start to develop. And the head of the studio said, this looks a whole lot better than what you pitched to us. And so let's go with this. And let's cancel Splash 2. And that's eventually what happened. They went with The Little Mermaid and canceled Splash 2. And so The Little Mermaid ended up being a turning point in terms of Disney animation, and it got it sold a ton of merchandise, including McDonald's tie-ins and clothing, and then of course the video came out and it sold like hotcakes, and so there was this these big marketing tie-ins that Disney could plug into, and from then on out they had one minor setback with The Rescuers Down Under, but then came Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King, Pocahontas, and so on and so forth. If it wasn't for The Little Mermaid being a hit, you wouldn't have Beauty and the Beast, which made even more money and became a big hit. And then you had The Lion King, which was even bigger yet. It was just a big, huge turning point, and it was a big time in feature animation. And of course it was a huge hit movie. It has iconic music, iconic songs written by Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, and I could say just the title of the song and already you're singing it in your head. Part of Your World, and already that la da 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 la da da da, already that melody is going in your head. Under the Sea, Kiss the Girl, Poor Unfortunate Souls. So yeah, that's The Little Mermaid from 1989, and that's all I'm about to talk about it because I've already talked about it before, but it's nice to kind of revisit it and remember that this movie was a turning point in Disney animation and kept it going throughout. It was the last movie of the 80s, and it was a Kickstarter in what they were going to deliver in the 90s, which was a powerhouse worth of product. Now, that being said, oh, and one more thing, it's certified fresh here on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, they put that on the back now. Of course, this is a classic, but going on from The Little Mermaid, a few months ago, I think back in December, this book was released. I had no idea it was released until about a month ago. And then once I found out that it was released, I had to find it. I had to get a copy. And it's a story about triumph, tragedy, faith, and all what led up to The Little Mermaid for this particular actress. What led up to The Little Mermaid, everything past The Little Mermaid for her. And it is, well, I'm just going to show it to you. It is Part of My World by Jodi Benson. Jodi Benson was the voice of Ariel, both singing and a speaking voice. And there's a little bit of help here from Carol Traver to help get this all into published form. The full title is Part of My World, What I've Learned from The Little Mermaid About Love, Faith, and Finding My Voice, with a foreword by Paige O'Hara. Paige O'Hara is the voice of Belle. So, and if you know anything about Jodi Benson and Paige O'Hara, yeah, both played Disney princesses in the movies, but they are also very close friends in real life. Both Broadway stars, and so Broadway and musical theater stars, and of course they've been been with, they're with friends and, lifelong friends, and they've shared their stories. And this, I'm not going to say that this book is for everybody, but there is some powerful stuff in here. There's at times it made me cry. I mean, because, I grew up watching The Little Mermaid like a lot of kids did when it came out. The first thing she talks about in this book is recording part of your world. The very first thing. And how the insecurity that she had of recording the song and getting the tone right, getting the attitude right that would fit for the movie, and that's the first thing she talks about, and she confesses that that was also the first time that she had ever set foot in front of a microphone. And you would think, okay, you're playing to a theater packed with hundreds of people, you wouldn't be that nervous, right? Well, when you get in front of a microphone, you're a nervous wreck. Well, when you're on stage, you're projecting your voice. And you're projecting your voice. And so, in order to get the tone just right in front of a microphone. Now, this book covers pretty much her life story, from recording The Little Mermaid, all the plays that she had done, her college days, her childhood, and of course the things that led up to her getting hired and cast for Ariel in The Little Mermaid, and then everything after that. Everything after that. And of course, this is also a faith-based story. Jodi is a very devout follower of Jesus, and she loves Jesus with all her heart. And that's what made me love her even more reading this story, is her love for Jesus. And she states in this book, it hasn't been easy. As a matter of fact, she said, when The Little Mermaid came out, that was a joyous move, and it ended up jump-starting what would be her ministry, which she calls her ministry. She's used The Little Mermaid to minister to people. And, but she said that was probably one of the worst times in her life. She states that her marriage was going through a rocky time. Her and her husband were not living together. They were completely separated. She was she said that she was a bad role model for being a Christian. That's an honest heart, because I could say that. I do have some CDs that she produced shortly after The Little Mermaid that were children's ministry songs and things like that. And what was interesting about that is that she herself was not a parent yet. She goes in to talk about that stuff, and about her husband, and the rough time that they had, and the come back to Jesus walk that she had to achieve, and now she's a mother of two. You can just see that if you just follow her on Facebook, and she'll gladly allow you to follow her on Facebook. And she's constantly doing conventions and stuff like that. And of course, her children are now grown, and her daughter is following right in her footsteps. And this book and this story is definitely a walk of faith. To say that I really needed to read this book, or that she really needed to write the book, she really didn't want to, but someone had encouraged her, actually from Tyndale, which is a Christian publisher, and they had them and several other people had been pursuing her for years. Said, we would love to hear your story. We would love to publish this. We want to hear your story. We want to read your story. And finally, when COVID happened, she thought, you know what? Maybe it is a time to slow down, get this out on the table, and just, tell my story. And that's what's happened. So if you do see this, I would encourage you to pick it up. It is a great book. In terms of, in my opinion, I think it's a great book. It does get a little long, and you would say, well, okay, why would she want to talk about these certain things? Well, that's a part of your story. Even the parts that you don't think that are that important, it's who makes who you are, and the story that is being written out for you. And of course, Little Mermaid was part of her story. The critical financial flop of a play that she did right before The Little Mermaid, that's part of her story. As a matter of fact, if that play hadn't have happened, she wouldn't have been able to make The Little Mermaid. So that's how she got cast. And so, yeah, it's a wonderful book. I also got the audiobook, and she reads, that way you actually hear her voice tell the story, and so it adds to it. As a matter of fact, like I said, she's a mother of two now. It talks about that, how she had kids late in life, and the challenges and complications that arose. But to tell you how it all ends up, her son took this picture. Yeah, her son is credited as the photographer. And that's pretty good. And her daughter is following right in her footsteps, singing in theater productions and so forth. And so, as you can tell, it hasn't been an easy road for her. It's not an easy road for anybody. Life, we could make our own books, but it's just a matter of picking it up and reading it. So, with that, I think I'm going to close this series out. Hope you've had fun. Hope it's been a magical, romantic ride for you, as what it has been for me. It's definitely been a roller coaster. In the meantime, we'll probably be talking about some other movies. And there's one more thing I think I want to show here. So just sit tight for a sec, and I'll show you what I did. Okay, one last thing, and I'm squeezing it in before I do my closing comments. And I probably should have done this when I did Beauty and the Beast, but I was able to go on eBay and find this puzzle. I had actually had this thing when I was a kid. When Beauty and the Beast originally came out, was playing in the theater, I had one of these. And the family put it together, and once we were done putting it together, we put it back in the box and never touched it again. And then Mom put it in one of Grandma's rummage sales and got rid of it. And I kind of kicked myself in the butt for letting her do that, but that's the way we were with puzzles. Now I'm kind of I've got a ton of puzzles, and as you can see around this room, I've got a ton of movie posters as well. So I'm looking for these movie puzzle posters that you put together and you can frame them and whatnot. Well, I finally found on eBay the puzzle that I had when I was a kid. And it was unopened. It was a little pricey. It was around 40 bucks. But was able to find it unopened, put it together, and now let's take a look what the thing looks like. Now that noise you hear in the background, that's my washing machine because I'm actually doing my laundry at the same time. But this is in my hallway. Right above that is a home cinema always showing marquee that I've gotten from Hobby Lobby. And of course, I'm always willing to show Beauty and the Beast here in this house cinema. But yeah, here is the puzzle put together, framed using the puzzle glue. It is the full length of a movie poster. It is a full size 24 by 36 inch poster. I also got this frame at Hobby Lobby because this particular poster frame does have a more of a particle board backing as opposed to a cardboard. So not too much. I don't think you're gonna in terms of price, it's not gonna be too much difference. The only thing is that down at the bottom of the poster, it's gonna be missing like some credit information. Like it says Walt Disney Pictures Presents, and it has. This is actually one of the posters that would have been hanging in a movie theater. One of them. The other one is, of course, a more illustrated poster. Looks more fancy, but yeah, I'm proud to have this back. Put it together, and got the puzzle glue and everything. Framed it. It is now hanging here in my hallway because the movie room's kind of getting sparse on space, and so. But I just bought a ton of more puzzles, so I want to put those together. I may have to look into the office or other parts of the house. Hey, benefits of being a bachelor, right? So yeah, I'm not a fan of the woke Disney. I won't be, and I'm a fan of the stuff that I grew up with. Before it went woke, it was liberal then, but nothing like it is now. And I just hope that somebody comes to their senses and wakes up. But you know, it's nice to pull these movies out and watch these fairy tales. And I actually had to pare this list down because I had chosen some other movies, and I thought, you know what? Am I doing Disney princesses, or am I doing the actual romantic stories? Because a lot of times there's princesses, but there's no romantic story. Like, I would say, for example, like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Yeah, you have Princess Esmeralda, but there really isn't there is a love story there between her and Phoebus and Quasimodo, but it's not really the central part of the story. It's about bigotry and hatred at the heart of that story. And then you have Lady and the Tramp, which is a love story between the two dogs, and Lady is not a princess. So it was. I had to pare some things down in the Frozen movies and Moana. And Mulan. I had to really stop and think. Okay, is romance like at the central part of the story, while Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, those were. So, and yeah, it was interesting to go through these movies and kind of revisit them. So, don't know what I'm going to do the next time. We're going to talk about some other movies. There's some other movies I would love to talk about, you know, the rest of this year. So, from me to you, see you later.